You should be watching this video because you want to learn how to do a NAV upgrade to Business Central on-prem. And if you have found this video online, then hopefully this will be somewhat informative to helping you with the process. I'm just going to quickly go over what we're trying to do here today. I have our own personal Microsoft Dynamics NAV 2018 database. It's being all prepped for an upgrade, and we're going to go through probably about half the upgrade today in this video. It's going to get to the point where it's relatively usable, but I'm not going to reinstall extensions. I'm not going to do any data migration, manual data migration if that needs to be done. Pretty much everything that we're going to do today is already working with a database that has extensions in it. So the work after the upgrade should be pretty straightforward. And I've prepped everything that needs to be done. Typically, when we're doing an upgrade for a customer, it's a little bit more complicated because most of them are going from older versions of NAV where nothing's being written as an extension. And frankly, this process is going to be pretty quick, partially because I'm going to cut out all the waiting and you're just going to see it go through very quickly. So I'm following the document that's in front of us right now, which is the upgrading the data to Business Central for a single tenant deployment. And this works for various versions of Microsoft Dynamics. So we're going to be going from NAV 2018 to Business Central, which requires a particular file from the CD that we're going to grab, the DVD for Microsoft Dynamics Business Central a little bit later. But what we've done so far is I have already done most of the prerequisites. I've done backups of the database. I'm now at the point where I'm going to uninstall the extensions from the old database. So let's go in and see how that looks. Okay, so this is the command Microsoft gives us to remove extensions from the database, and I filled in Sabre Live as the instance I'm going to run into and the two places where I need to do that, and I'm just going to run this command. So what this is doing is it's basically digging through the database to find out what all of the extensions that are installed are, and it's just uninstalling all of those extensions from the database. Okay, so there were a couple of extensions that were maybe published but not installed. So we've got a couple little error messages here. But if we go back to the instructions, there is also this command here that we can use just to see what's installed in the database. And it comes from Microsoft. So they give you all these great scripts to use. So we run that, there's nothing in the database right now. So there's no installed nav apps live in this database. So we're good when it comes to that. Okay, so now that we have that out of the way, and we won't need the PowerShell ISE any longer, we have to go into the database and we have to do, well, let's take a look at what the next step is. So we have to upload the Business Central Partner License to the old database. So the Business Central Partner License is a particular Business Central license that is basically only partners would get this license. So as customers, you're not available. This is not available to you. And the license, we keep the license on our development drive. So let's go install that. So we'll go in here, and what we'll do is, so we're connected to the database with the development environment. This is the development tools that come with base NAV 2018. So we're still in NAV 2018, and we're going to do an upload of license information. And here are my database files. So what we want to do is we want to take this one, Business Central 14. So the database license is in the database now. And what we want to do next, which is a very important step, is we want to delete all the objects except the tables in the old database. This is why we are taking a backup, aside from having deleted everything else. We're gonna highlight all the pages in the database and we're gonna delete them. And this is a kind of irreversible process. Once we've done this, we're well on our way to doing this upgrade. Removing the extensions, if you have extensions, would also do that. If you have NAV 2017 and earlier, you could have, in 2017, you could have something called an extension 1.0. You do have to use the same process to remove extension 1.0 files. Okay, so there we go. We have no pages, reports, code units, queries, XML ports, or menu suites left, but we have tables. Can't delete the tables. That's your data. You delete the tables, you delete your data, you upgrade, you basically have an empty blank database. All right, so we're done with this now. This is our 2018 machine. This is the server that 2018 was running on. I'm going to do a backup of this, and then I'm going to restore it onto the new server. So let's come back to that in a couple minutes. Okay, so I've completed the reloading of the SQL database onto the server. I've also cleared the server instance and debugger breakpoint records in that database. Now this is, it says old database. It can be the database I just created. I just have to run these commands. So now we're at the step where we're going to convert the old database to Business Central. And what we do is we open the database with the development environment. And when we do that, it will complain and it will say it has to be converted before you can use it. So I will do that. And it'll ask me to confirm. Now what it's doing is it's converting the database to Business Central. Now this is going to happen really, really quickly. You're not done. What's happened is the database version is now accessible in the development environment. And it's, like I said, it's not going to take very long. Once it's working, the database will open up and you'll actually see the development environment. So let's wait for that to be finished. Okay, so we're at the point now where the database is being upgraded. Let's take a look at what the system says. So convert the old database. Do not run schema synchronization at this time. Choose to run it later. So if you are upgrading from like Business Central CU11 to Business Central CU12, you do the same process, but then you would actually run the schema sync. So I'm not going to do that. I'm going to pass on that. And now I have my object designer open. And all I have are tables. So pages, reports, etc. are all missing from that. Well, actually, look at that. There are a few code units that got created. And those may have been created when we imported, when during the upgrade cycle. Okay. The next step in the conversion is to import upgraded application objects to the converted database. Now, in our case, we're going from a baseline NAV 2018 database with no customizations in the cal code. This is cal code. In this module. So if I go into a table like team member Q, which I don't even know what this table is, and I design it and I go in, there's no modifications in this or any of these objects. You can tell because there's a modified column here, and absolutely none of the objects in my database were modified. So what I want to do is I want to import the unmodified versions. So I'm going to import. So I'm going to go File, Import. I'm going to import the unmodified version. So what I have here is I have a Business Central 14 CU12 baseline unmodified object. So I'm just going to pull this in. This is basically, I took the Kronos database that gets installed with Business Central and I exported all of those objects to something called a FOB file. And now I'm importing those objects. Now, if you are doing this and you don't have, and it's going to say, hey, there's some objects in the database. What do you want me to do? I just want them all replaced. Everything gets replaced with the objects that I have selected. So replace all and OK. And I believe, let's read the notes here on the instructions. Import the objects, replace all, click OK. When prompted, do the later for schema synchronization. So schema synchronization we're going to do later. And this is going to go through and it's going to import all of these objects. And then later we'll compile them, etc. Very important to understand, if no cal modifications are required, technically a customer might be able to do this step. If there are any cal code modifications, the customer would need a partner in order to do that step. The cal code modifications generally do require that a partner license is used, because most objects, with the exceptions of, I believe, reports and XML ports, cannot be modified by customers' license. They require a developer license, which most customers don't have. Now, some customers do have a developer license, and if you do, you can do some of this. There are limits even to what a customer developer license can do, because there's 2 levels of that developer license. There's a light version that allows you to make modifications to pages and tables, but not to Microsoft posting code units. And then there's a full version that allows you to get in and modify anything and everything. The light version is about 10,000 Canadian, 8,000 US. And the full version, I believe, is an additional 20 or 30,000 on top of that. I have yet to have a customer that has the full version, but I have had some who have the light version. So one is called the application builder, and the other one is called the solution developer. And frankly, I don't remember which one is which. So we're going to let the development environment finish compiling and storing these new objects in there. And when we're done with that, we'll be able to go in and look at page and report and query and all of those things. And we'll see Business Central 14 versions of all of that stuff. Okay, so the database is complete. We now have created 4,974 objects and replaced 1,425, which are the tables. So if I go in now and I look at all of these, you'll see there's pages and reports and code units, etc. So I now have basically a working NAV database, you would think, except there's a couple more steps to be done. Connect a Business Central server instance to my converted database. All right. So I'm going to do that in the background, and then we'll come back to this in a second. Okay, I went in the background and I connected a Business Central server instance. So that's done by going into the Business Central Server Administrator MMC, creating the instance, setting up. I had to do a thumbnail of a signed certificate, or thumbprint, excuse me, of a signed certificate, and attach that. Now what I want to do is first of all, I want to compile all the objects, but I'm going to go check and make sure that none of these exist in that database. So these are the 470 and then the 820 and the notification template 1510. I don't think they do, because I think they're also removed. We're good. We've deleted those objects that need to be removed from the system, and we're going to compile all the objects. And then this is something we have to do when we're upgrading from NAV 2016. We don't need to do that. So really what we're going to do is we're just going to go like this. We're going to go all, we're going to highlight everything, and we're going to hit F11 on our keyboard. And I believe we still do this later. So I'm going to let this go like that. And then this is going to take quite some time, so we'll come back to it later. Okay, so now that we've compiled all the objects, our next step is to increase the application version of the converted database. So we do that. There's a command here we run, which I've prepared in advance to update the application version to the application version of the database I've created. So we're going to run the PowerShell ISE, and in here under add-ons, I've got a little commandlets loader that I wrote that just automatically loads my commandlets for Business Central. And I'm going to install this and let this guy go. So we're going to do that against our new server, our new Sabre Live instance. Oh, the instance is not running. So let me start the instance and then come right back. And I'm just going to run this. So there we go. So we've updated the database to the correct version. Now what we need to do is we need to do step 11. So step 11 is run schema synchronization on the converted database. So I've already copied this. Let's copy this and put it in here. So my instance is called Sabre Live. So this is the step that now actually does the tenant sync. So let's run this guy. And yes, we're going to do synchronization. So synchronization essentially is taking the nav table objects that are in code, and it's running SQL commands to create the tables as they appear in code. So if Microsoft added a table field, then it'll run the code to add that table field. What might happen under certain circumstances is there's something called a destructive change, which Microsoft removed a field. That will be dealt with later. So we're gonna run this as just a regular sync of nav tenant. It'll take a few minutes to run. So let's let this thing go. Okay, we're almost done. So let's get ready to do the next step. So this worked. When we run this command, what we should get is a message that the database is awaiting upgrade. So there we go. Operation data upgrade pending is the correct state for this database. So we're in the correct state. We're ready to go to the next step. So the next step is to run the data upgrade. Now, in order to do this, there's a step I haven't done yet. In the development environment, I have to import from the CD, I have to import the upgrade objects. So let's go look for those. So on my C drive, this is a general Sabre thing that we do. On the C drive, we put in a folder with our installed versions of software. So we have on this computer, we have NAV 2018, NAV 14 CU12, the C drive to the installed software where we have the Business Central version 12. We'll go into the folder for the upgrade toolkit, and there's a data conversion tool. So we're version 11, which is 2018, and we're going to version 14, so this is the correct file. So we're going to import these objects. There will be a few new objects, but you'll notice if you haven't worked with Business Central before, there's this building object search index, that's being added. So whenever I import objects, it runs through this again. Okay, now that I have the upgrade objects installed, it's time to run the upgrade commands. So the upgrade commands are also running here. There are 3 of them. I will copy them in and grab the copy. So the first one is the start nav data upgrade with the server instance, and generally you want it to be in serial, you want it to continue on air, and you want to skip company initialization. So we will run that. And yes, we're going to start the data upgrade process. Now this may not take very long. We're going to have a bullet, and then it's going to stop, and you're thinking, oh, it's done, but it might not be. So what we do is we run the dash progress to see what's going on, and it tells us, basically it shows the progress of the upgrade. Now, if we get to a point where this progress freezes at a number and won't proceed, then we have to do the error only and see what's going on. But basically what's happening is the system is running through step by step the upgrade process. Okay. And then if I run it with error only, I get no error messages. So if I rerun this one here, which was to check the state of the database, if I rerun this, the state of the database is now operational. So now that it's operational, we should be able to log in. Now I still have a lot of users who use the role tailored client. This is NAV 20 Business Central 14, so the role tailored client will work. So let's try logging into that. So we are going to connect to 7056/Sabre Live. And I have my cross your fingers. There we go. So we are logged into the system now, and I can connect to the Sabre Live. Now you'll notice in my example, that there's a little bumblebee on my Dynamics Business Central, because we are a reseller of a product called PrintViz, which is an enhanced version of Business Central. But now we have upgraded our Business Central database from NAV 2018 to Business Central. I am able to log in with my own username into Business Central, and basically the system is functional today. So we can get in, we can start working with it. I'm not going to get into how to deploy the extension to it. We need to deploy extensions to this database. That's going to take, that's quite a bit more work and extra steps that have to be done. Obviously, this whole thing took several hours to do, but you're seeing it shortened down into a much shorter time. And I haven't set up the modern client, the role tailor, or the web client yet. That will be one of the next things that I do. But essentially, all of the data is there. All of the information is now present in the system. We have the ability to take a look at any piece of data that's in this database right now. And it's functional in Business Central without any customizations. Those have to be redeployed. But that is basically the process of doing an upgrade. Generally speaking, clients always sub this out to their partners to do. And the actual execution of it, in our case, our database is actually quite small and these servers are fairly fast. So this took about, let's say 3 hours to do from beginning to end. On a large customer's database, we've had databases where it's taken 6 to 8 hours minimum, just for the administrative, just for the copying and the running of those synchronizations or compiling of objects, et cetera, et cetera. It depends very much on the size of the database. I think the longest we've had is about a total of 30 hours, which was pretty tricky because obviously people aren't going to be sitting there solid for 30 hours working on something. And so what would happen is we'd start it before, went to bed, got up in the morning, continued it, and then it was Sunday, starting at 5 p.m. on a Friday. It was Sunday at noon-ish before the system was ready for users to get in and test, which doesn't leave a lot of time for testing. But the customer was comfortable with it because they had tested the previous converted version. We converted it earlier for them, maybe 2 months earlier, and they had played around with it and confirmed that everything was working. So this is the process to do an upgrade. This is a finished Business Central upgrade to Business Central 14 CU12, and we're going to put this in users' hands, and they're going to start using the system in the next couple of days. That is it for today, and I hope you enjoyed this approach or this step-by-step guide and find it useful. Thank you.